Welcome to the Dance Centre podcast. I am your host, Claire French, and I'm joining you from the traditional unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish and Tsleil-Waututh peoples, also known as Vancouver, Canada. I'll be talking to dancers, choreographers and other members of the dance world here on the West Coast to find out more about their creative work and practices, and to discuss what it means to us to be dance professionals today. Thanks for joining us. Sarah Hin Ching U is a Chinese-Canadian dance artist and choreographer. She's trained in a multitude of styles that continue to influence her practice, including Latin ballroom, contemporary ballet, and hip-hop. She creates and collaborates with new media tools, including AI editing, machine learning processes, real-time animation, mixed reality application, and gravitates towards stories of human desire, identity, and relationship. Her main intentions in her practice are to explore and promote the cross-pollination between contemporary dance and street dance, and to investigate the integration of new media tools in performance making, pushing the boundaries of choreography beyond physical movement. Her work has been presented by Dancing on the Edge, the National Arts Centre, the Dance Centre, New Works, Dance Works, Stampede, Free Flow Dance Theatre, Spring Works, among others. And in 2022, she received the Professional Performing Artist Award from British Columbia Arts Council. Sarah Yu graduated from Simon Fraser University in 2021 with a BFA in Dance and Kinesiology. And I'm talking to her today in connection with the Quebec BC Residency Exchange program. She is exchanging with Quebec artist Natsumi Sophia Balali. You can head to thedancecentre.ca to find out more about this residency exchange program. So I'm delighted to be joined by Sarah Hin Ching U today. We have a lot to talk about. She is an up-and-coming artist who is been extremely productive and is versatile and super talented, and we have a lot to talk about. Sarah, welcome. Thank you for talking with me today.
Hi, thank you for having me here, and excited to chat and share.
Great. So first of all, let's start with a little bit of your history and your history with dancing. Would you like to start your narrative with us today?
Sure. So I'm a second generation immigrant from China. So I started training in dancing in China, and my first kind of exposure to dance was Latin ballroom dance. And it was my mom's best friend's daughter was really into it. So my mom was like, okay, let's try to put Sarah in it and maybe she'll love it. Uh-huh. And I did. And I did that for Latin ballroom dance, like from like in a recreation kind of thing, like to competition and all of that until I was 15. And then I came to Canada. But here I really struggled to find a dance partner. Mm-hmm. And like, especially in China, I have the same one for like, I think the last one I had was like for at least 5 years. So we've really built that relationship, and coming here, like with English being a problem and also just not knowing what kind of dance communities there are, mm-hmm. I just didn't continue with like my Latin ballroom dance. And at that time, I went to Burnaby North High School, and then they have a dance program inside the school, and then they did mostly contemporary and ballet, and I liked it too. And I just liked it, and then, so I just kept going down like the contemporary and ballet path all the way to SFU, and now that I've graduated, I'm like learning more street dance and hip hop and breaking.
So can we just backtrack just a little bit? Two things I'd like to say is I also have a history with ballroom, but waltz and, the jive and those things. I mean, it was in the 70s and 80s for me, so it was a while back. But I find that quite interesting that sometimes that is a way in and a way into being interested in more than one technique as well. So there's something about the fluidity in the moves and also the different styles within the ballroom and kind of traditional ballroom and the Latin, as you said, the Latin ballroom, that I think is really lovely that you were then able to transfer into the ballet and contemporary, but then and find a deep interest in that. And there are quite a few people who have that track. But then how did you find SFU? Was that through the school? Was that through Burnaby North then?
Yeah, because my dance teacher went to SFU.
Okay, so
Yeah,
it's quite
she just like recommended.
Okay.
And was like, oh, why don't you try this thing? And I'm like, okay, I'll try.
And what did you find when you were at SFU? Did you find new pathways there, not just in movements, but in like your interest in dance? Do you think your creation or your choreography interest came from that program?
Yeah, SFU has a very interdisciplinary program. So that was really like nice to think about like dance in conjunction with other art forms. Mm-hmm. And then I also really enjoy the composition and choreography classes, mm-hmm. which was new.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I did my MFA at SFU, so that's why I moved to Vancouver, actually. And I moved from the UK in the 90s. And I was drawn to SFU for the interdisciplinary aspect as well. So I think there's something really interesting in there, the compositional things, but then also the kind of whole kind of theatrical, there's the visual, there's this sense of costume, but then there's the concepts and all of those things. And I think that's something you've definitely picked up on and is moving through your work. So outside of education, what would you say, like in your trajectory as an artist, as an emerging artist, you've had some really wonderful experiences, and a lot of them have been through the Dance Centre programming with 12 Minute Max and all of those things. But what would you say have been your highlights along the way so far as a professional emerging artist?
I think every project feels very special to me, but if I have to pick one, and the most recent highlight would be I toured my work to Edmonton just last month, and it was a silent house, my solo, and it started in the Dance Centre's 12-Minute Max program, and then 2 years later, now we're in Edmonton we did 3 shows, and then it was really lovely. My first time bringing my work outside of the province and connecting with the dance community there. Yeah.
That's great. When you travel then, or because we'll be talking about your Montreal residency that's coming up too, which is very exciting. Do you teach? Are you a teacher as well? Do you like to, or do you see them as separate paths in your career, or do you bring them together when you travel with work? Or do you imagine that in your future you would bring them together as you travel?
I teach here, like I teach for a couple of studios and community centers, and I work mostly with younger children. Mm-hmm. But I really enjoy teaching, and like I see myself continue doing that, like both teaching and creating. Teaching for me, like there's a really strong sense of community. And also the way that I'm able to receive feedback is very satisfying than I feel like in a performance or creation setting that I spend so much time, like honing the work in rehearsal, and then it's like that one big show. But then while in teaching, that I really just get that like continuous exchange and like feedback with my students. So I really enjoy that. When I travel, it depends if the presenter wants me to. Like I do like to share like my technique and like part of my work. When I went to Edmonton, I did teach 2 classes for their company.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, that's really good. And so one of the things around when you were just saying about the teaching, there's one thing about it's such a social thing, isn't it? Because there is an immediate feedback loop. And even though being in performance, you are picking up on the audience and the energy of the audience, there's really nothing you can do about it while you're kind of on the stage, or not in quite the same way. And so I think there is something very much about, there can be a surprise about what you are learning as the teacher from the students at the same time that you can be surprised by what the students are learning by being in that room. I think that's all quite exciting and a kind of unpredictable in some ways that might surprise some people. I'm sure, I know all the time I'm surprised as a student in the class and as a teacher whenever that happens. So, yeah. So do you have any advice for young people or current dance students? I want to come back to you arriving in Canada as part of this context that I'm going to set up now, because I would like to say I think there's something very strong in arriving in a country and having to learn the language or customs or all of these things, or like even what opportunities might be available that you knew about before in your home country, like to try to find those, but also being open to new opportunities and new experiences in a new place. And do you think your drive is both a creative one, but do you think it's also driven by your need to learn the language and really push for having as many opportunities as you had at home here for what you wanted to achieve? Do you think that's part of your drive? Do you think that helped you?
Maybe I'll start with the last question because
okay.
Yeah, the creative drive. I think I'm driven like by my desire to find people who share the same vision as I am. Like I want to find those people that I can really vibe with and can really understand each other. And yeah, and I know that for me, it's like I sometimes don't connect the best with a conversation because like I'm neurodivergent and all that, but I can really connect through dance. Like I can really connect with someone when I see them dance or when I see a work that I strongly resonate with. So I want to have this kind of hubs or this kind of spaces where I create this work and they can help me find the people that I want in my life.
So how? I mean, on a practical level, it's about presence, like being present in the room with people, or being able to attract the people to you. How?
I think
in terms of advice for younger people, how, or even how have you done that? Have you managed to do that?
I think in small instances that I would feel like, oh yes, I feel that people really resonate, or I have that, like after the show, that conversation, or that I felt like I really find the people and was able to continue to nurture that relationship. I think having a clear message really helps. Like I know what I'm going to say, or like why is it important for me to have this work or do this performance, and really stay true to that single idea throughout the entire creation process so that it serves that purpose. And when people come see the work, or like, it's fascinating because usually that is the thing that drives them to see the work, because they know that, oh, this is about that. Like they don't even know me, but like, okay, it's about that and I am interested in that. So let's come see, and then that sparks. So I feel like I don't really like giving advices because I think everyone's journey is so different and I'm so young and like, so I feel a little incapable of giving advices, but like an observation from my experience that I think would really help is like having a very clear vision and message for your choreographic work. Like know that why it is important for me to say that and why it is important for other people to hear that.
That's beautiful. The reason why I'm asking you, and I agree with you, like advice is like, take or leave. And I agree with you also that it's better to call it like observations that we've made from our experience, from insight. But I just wanted to acknowledge that I think you have a lot of insight that you can share with people who, because there's also a period of time when, and I've experienced this myself a long, long time ago, almost to the point of not being able to remember, but then also being a teacher and a lecturer where I've actually wanted to help people transition from a degree into a professional world without expectations that are unachievable as quickly as they hope or they think they're ready for.
Yeah.
And so I really appreciate what you're saying here, because you have done it, and the way in which you have done it, you just expressed in such a lovely way for people to latch onto. And one thing I want to say about what you were saying, where the work is, you know, you make the work that you know what it's about, you know why you are personally doing it, and then people come to see the work because they come to see what it's about. I think what that allows over time is that then they start to become more interested in you as the artist and what you as an artist are going to do, and less about what the work is about. Or maybe not less, but just it becomes that when you're attracting your people and you're attracting like-minded people, they're interested in your artistry regardless of the concept or the topic. And so I think that ends up being a kind of that's how you mold a career, and that's how you maintain a career as an artist, is to allow for that fluctuation and ebb and flow between your concepts and you bringing something.
That's beautiful. Yeah.
Like that's also what you're doing, right? You believe very strongly in that, and that comes from your connection, and it comes from the connection to the material and to the concept that you've chosen, and what you said, your purpose for doing it and continuing to do it. Yeah. So what drives, I mean, you've already talked a little bit about this, so I'm going to put two things together. You mentioned a creative drive, or you talked a little bit about that. You also mentioned that you are neurodivergent, and a little bit about your experiences of that being impacting, of course, how you go about process and it's very particular to you, as it is for every artist's process and interests are to a certain degree. But I'd love to hear, if you would be willing to talk about it, I'd love to talk more about maybe how the neurodivergent aspect, how you feel for you, it's either impacted, affected, or supported your dance.
Cool. I have a seizure disorder that is triggered by loud music or sound. It doesn't have to be music, or like loud sound too. And the challenges are pretty obvious. In dance, there's always music and there's always sound, and especially now I go like to more in the street dance, like group battles and ciphers and all of that. It's like there's always a lot of sound. And the way I cope with it is I have earplugs. I always bring earplugs everywhere, and I communicate like in advance if I can with the organizers, and then I always try to scan the room to see where the speakers are located, so I can find a spot that is the furthest away from the speaker. So those are all like physical things that I do to protect myself. And yeah, so that is the challenge part. But one thing I have like really like learned from like discovering that I'm neurodivergent and I have all these needs is like the amount of compassion and care I need to have for my body that I feel like I don't necessarily like ever think about when I was training, because I was just always told to be pushed, right? Like go to your furthest limit, like, you know, just forget about the pain and everything, just push. And it didn't work. It didn't work in this instance. And it makes me rethink about my physical virtuosity, because I love, like, as a dancer, I love that, and I love that in my work. But how can my physical virtuosity emerges from, like, a deep listening and care for this body, rather than just, like, a blindly, I need to go. Yeah, so I think that helped me be more at ease, and also, yeah, it just helped. Sorry, I lost my track of thought.
I feel like there's this sense of finding a stillness, right? in the way you're talking right now. Like when you talk about that deep care and compassion, you find the place, and then you settle in that place. So that's what you did. That's what you just did.
That's so nice. Yeah. Oh yeah, and another thing is like kind of like how it supports my work with I can feel everything, and then like I'm very sensitive to everything, like to all the stimulus. So at times it's right, like it's very overstimulating, it's difficult and all of that. But also at times that experience is beautiful. Like I can like really sit and to just enjoy like a sip of tea, or like I can really feel the texture of my cardigan on my skin right now. And I think it's it is a really amazing thing as an artist, because when you have all this like in-depth experiences that are so personal to you, that you can really turn that into your own stories and artistry to share.
It's almost like you don't need an audience, because every experience you have every day is already
it's a show.
Already got the craft and the quality and everything.
Yeah.
And then it's choosing what to share with an audience, right? Or it's choosing what to spend more time on.
Yeah.
I'm sure that, does it make you indecisive sometimes?
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And that's why like going back to like our conversation, having that clear message or vision really helps, because I will never run out of ideas like that. I know. Yeah.
And that's something I remember being told by somebody a long time ago, that I had to stop putting so many ideas into my work. I had to just choose one thing that it was about, and it was impossible for me. Absolutely. It still is. It still is. I will never be able to do that. Somebody else can tell me that it's about one thing. That's fine. But I can't do that.
Yeah.
I'm just an interconnector. It just, so many things just cross over for me all the time. But I'm really interested in then how you come to deciding what your work is, or is it really genuinely more like it kind of reveals itself? One of the things I'm thinking, and what you've talked about, is that there might be a sensation that you find is happening across multiple sensitivities. So like a similar sensation might be coming up. And then there might be a compositional idea that you have that is nuanced by all of these, by your own kind of sensitivity to feelings that you can stick with, because you have all of these different ways of expressing it or interpreting it. So how do you decide what a work is about?
I don't decide.
Don't decide. Okay.
I don't decide in the beginning, because I think our work really needs to have that fourth time of research and reflection before it like can really comes into a place. Like I have a rough idea. I always start with what I'm interested in. Like, what is the visual or a sensation that I just cannot get rid of? Like I'm just thinking about it all day. Like I started with that as source of seed, and then I gather information, I gather research around that. I continue to build that, and then it come to a point that it will be too much, it will be too confusing, and then I go back and find like all the common things, and then also, now this is about that, like about a theme, and then I continue to build around it. So yeah, I feel like it's hard, because you do need that seed of inspiration, but you also need to allow it to grow and to be confusing, and then you can collect and then find that one thing that it can continue to sprout.
And I love that, because there's something about allowing yourself to attend to this notion of a seed, maybe even before you've identified the seed.
Yeah.
So there is that element of like you say, you kind of can reflect, and there was another word you used, like research and reflect on many different things at once, and then you realize it is actually one thing, or the seed becomes. So I like what you said, that it's not necessarily that there has to be a seed, but when the seed comes to you, you might have already started a process. I feel.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you don't have to wait for the seed to come to start. That's, I think, what I mean as well. You don't have to actually start with the seed.
Or you can also actively search for a seed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a really good way of saying it, because some people, sometimes it's useful to take that into the studio, but also if you stomp around enough in the studio and you mess with your feet enough and the floor enough, then you're gonna unearth a seed anyway. So you just will. Yeah. So,
exactly.
Yeah, that's great. So could you tell us a bit about the piece that you're planning to work on during the Montreal residency, and tell us a little bit about that project that's coming up? There's a collaboration between the Dance Centre in Vancouver and Circuit-Est in Montreal. Yeah. And you were I don't want to say winner, but you were selected to represent Vancouver in Montreal.
Yes. Yeah.
Like running up to the podium and like... so you will be going to Montreal for a couple of weeks in January.
Yeah, it's coming up. Very exciting.
Excellent.
Yeah. My project it's a seed. So coming back to it, super fresh. And I think this is my first residency working on this. And I'm very interested in breaking, and then breaking and contemporary floor work. So right now I'm mentoring under Victor Tran, Savage Rock, and he's based in Montreal. And so I think that's where like all these connections came together.
Right.
Yeah. And then in the beginning, it was like, I'm just really curious about the physicality, like of breaking and contemporary floor work. Like, yeah, we both use the floor, we both harness gravity and momentum, but in such a different way. Like, I find that contemporary floor work has a lot of pouring and sliding and like this fluid distribution of weight. And when I first started training and breaking, I was like, oh my God, I have no strength. Like, my body doesn't understand anything, which was frustrating, but it was also so exciting because it unlocked all these things for me. So there's the seed, like just the physicality that I'm really interested in. And it is starting to sprout now. Because I'm starting to feel it's like the essence of the dance breaking, like its history is it came from African Americans and Latinos in the States, and then they use that as something to protect themselves, right? Like protect their gang, to be strong, and it's a way for them to release their anger as well. So it's like battling and the kind of confrontation, all of that is so inherent in the dance that I remember training with Victor the first section. He was just teaching me how to stand, like how to pose. And it was so difficult because I was like, I don't understand this bodily language because I don't have that in me. I went to a Christian school. I was raised in an Asian household. I was never taught about anger. Like, I was told that anger is something that I need to hide, like, because it's shameful, it's disrespectful. I could never appear aggressive, right? And as a female identifying, you're gentle, you're like all of that, you're listening, you're never angry, you're never showing off that side of you. So I feel like training and breaking now is unlocking that in me, that I felt like, wow, I have so much more freedom in moving, but also in my daily life. Like Victor always says that, and my other hip hop teachers say that it's a lifestyle, it's a culture. Like you don't just do hip hop inside the studio when you're dancing. You are, you embody that in your daily life as well. So I think that was really beautiful. And I think there's something in that residency, yes, definitely, like working on the skills and physicality, but also like reflecting back, right, like on my own training and my own experience as this kind of timid Asian female identifying no anger person, but like being that, like how does that, a lot of questions, but like sprouting a scene.
And so exciting because it's about power, self-power.
I love that.
There's also an element of like understanding that you might feel angry but not acting on anger, which is a very healthy way of seeing, to not act from an angry place, but to recognize anger in yourself.
Oh, I love that. Yeah.
There's something so beautiful about that, because that also feels to me like that takes care a little bit of you, so you don't have to lose sight of your ancestry and your culture at the same time. I feel like that's what you're going to do.
Yeah, I think you put it so beautifully. Yeah, it's that, right? Like
all of your power.
It's that you're showing anger, but like you're still in control of it.
Yeah,
like you're using anger as to your advantage in your dancing.
Oh, yeah. And the other thing I wanted to say about that was that it's recognizing that anger is an expression, but also within what I understand of hip hop is that it's at the same time you support all of the people around you.
Yes.
In there to manage anger. And so you're not turning that anger on to one other person. Anger is felt. It's culturally felt. It's like innately understood to be a form of expression that is necessary to deal with the crap, to deal with, all the stuff. So yeah. It's also a way of supporting in breaking things with the way that it's taught and the way that it comes together as a culture, and the way that you continue that in lifestyle is also to support others.
Yeah.
In that zone, I find that with a lot of, I think that's very, that excites me no end. Like, I love that.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah, that's so good.
So good.
So yeah, you're gonna have such an amazing time.
Thank you.
And it's just so great to be somewhere else as well, and know that you kind of you already know that you've already done that, you've moved, and you've made those big transitions, but with a work, you've just been to Edmonton, but with, for a residency somewhere, it really imbues it with so much, kind of fresh information. So that's very exciting. Are you working on anything else at the moment as well? Or is that, I believe that you are an artist in residence, is that right? At Toronto Dance Theatre, is that true?
At the School of Toronto Dance Theatre. So the
great.
Dance Art Institute, yeah.
Yeah. And so what is your connection with that? And is that happening as well currently?
That is happening in February.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm doing this AI digital dance creation thing. Yeah. And great. I will be working with their students actually to show them how to how I use the software and how I use those kind of tools to like create a digital dance.
Yeah, so I wonder if we could just maybe just or talk a little bit about street dance, contemporary, ballet. Is ballet still in your vocabulary, would you say? I mean, it's obviously still in the body. I mean, once, to a certain degree. But in the way that you are, would you say that it is, because I wonder sometimes if ballet and hip hop have more in common actually than contemporary and hip hop sometimes. And I partly say that because of the concentration on the technique, where there are parts that are isolated and there's a coordination that, as you said about contemporary floor work, is necessary, but is much more fluid. Like it's dispersed across the body, and the entire body moving as a corporeal thing is like, it's really the goal. Whereas with hip hop and ballet, sometimes it's broken down. The techniques, different parts of the body do different things at the same time to, kind of allow for it to happen. So that's just a very general, explanation of where, of how I think about it. But what do you think? Do you think the ballet helps your hip hop? Gets in the way?
I think so. First, I'm not an expert in hip hop or ballet or contemporary dance, so I'm just saying this again in my own observations of my experience.
I should say breaking, shouldn't I? Because it's breaking that you are.
Yeah, I also do hip hop. Do hip hop. Yeah, okay. I think I actually find that contemporary has more connection with hip hop than ballet because hip hop is a freestyle dance. And so I just feel like in contemporary, we work so much with improvisation and like sensing your body and like finding your own unique new pathways. So I think, that's just like more transferable to, learning hip hop.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you find that your ballet training or your ballet or even your ballroom actually, because I find that my ballroom training is in my style, it's in my choreographic work, it's in some of my compositional kind of phrasing. Sometimes I haven't abandoned it, but I am trying to kind of recognize when it comes up and make sure that it's not just a habit, right? So that I'm using it for a purpose. Do you find that too? Do you find your ballroom coming in? Nope.
I think my ballet training actually makes learning hip hop quite difficult. It's just that natural stance and where tension is held, like in just like the stand is very different. Like in my ballet, I'm so lifted. I have so much tension in my shoulders about them pulling back and like my inner thighs, all of that. That is so like, I don't actually need that in hip hop.
No.
Yeah, so I think that is quite difficult to access in the beginning.
So what is your style?
Ooh. I'm still figuring that out. I don't know. I just like all of those styles and I just like do it, but I think right now I love hip hop the most. That I was saying. Yeah.
And so when you come to choreograph or to create, however you'd like to whatever word you'd like to use, do you use compositional tools?
Yes.
And what does that give you? What do you think the compositional tools give you with the freestyle of hip hop? Like, like I mean, I'm leading a little bit, I think, in a way, because I feel like I already have an answer to the question. I feel like for myself.
No, that makes sense. That helped me.
Yeah.
That helped me. I think like for me, I just divide the work into sections. So that some sections I will have more set choreography, and other sections I'm really like just freestyling and really focusing on the music, having that kind of contrast. Yeah.
Yeah. You mentioned music again, and I do want to come back to whether your sensitivity to sound really influences what music you choose.
Yes.
Or do you
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Yeah. And what do you avoid loud sounds?
Yeah, I do. And for like the last project, Silent How, I worked with a composer, and then we really have to kind of filter all of the sounds that would trigger me, like sounds that comes from like a really high note and then like drop to a really low note, or like those screeches, or like, and also layers of sound really matters too, because it doesn't have to, sometimes it doesn't have to be loud, but if there is like 10 different sounds happening at the same time, that is still a lot. So so it's like, that.
And have you contemplated creating a work that is in silence?
I think about it. I always think about it, but also love music. Yeah. So like if it's too much, then I get triggered and all of that. But I also love music.
That's beautiful, because that brings us back to the interdisciplinary aspect as well, right? And one of the creative drives is to bring these different components together, and to deal with these things. Like I just think now, like Silent Howl as a title is even more profound.
Yeah. They're like, there's nothing silent about this. I'm like,
no.
Yep. That's right. And I was not howling. Like, we have a little child came to see the show, and then she was like, "Oh, I thought she's a wolf." Like, she's not howling.
She's not howling?
Yeah. It's so funny.
Did she expect you to howl?
Yeah, he did. She thought I was like a wolf, or that kind of stuff. Yeah.
That's so cute. So do you think you'll work with an original composer in your new work as well?
Yeah, I think so.
That's important to you? Yeah.
Yeah.
It sounds like that's a lovely way, I think, of also extending your vision, if you like, or when you said about like-minded, bringing people in and bringing other professionals in. That's also another way, right? Of you building your network of people from other disciplines,
Yes.
and they have an understanding of you as an artist and what you're doing, but that also brings in their artistry to the picture too, which is really great.
Yeah.
That's really good. So, are your parents here, or are they? They are here. So you all moved to Canada?
Yes.
Okay. And how are they with your, you did mention that you're from an Asian family. How are they with you being a dancer and now doing hip hop? You mentioned in your proposal that's it was a bit of a stretch.
Yeah. I just, like, there is that switch when when my outfits go to dance will start to change. And I'm like wearing like the biggest clothes and the biggest bits. And then I would actually ask my dad for his t-shirts because mine aren't big enough. And then they would be like, they're just confused. Like, they're not, they're confused. They're like, oh, you kind of look like you hang out in the street. And I'm like, yeah, that's the whole point.
Street culture.
Yeah. And they're supportive. Like, once they know more what it is, because it's like, yeah, like, I'm like, there's a technique I learned from a teacher. Like, I have a good group of people supporting me. Like, we are dancing, like, not doing anything else. Then they are a lot more like, oh, okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Well, they must be proud as well at the same time, because you really are pursuing your dreams and you're making this happen professionally too. And I think that's really wonderful. So yeah. Well, I am very excited to hear more about what you get up to in Montreal, creatively speaking. And I'm sure we'll hear all about it when you are back. Will there be a showing in Montreal, do you think? Do you know?
Right now, I don't think so. My vision is I want to have some kind of cypher, some kind of jam on my last day, and I can invite all the street dancers in Montreal to come to the studio. And maybe I'll find a DJ somewhere.
Yeah. Oh, that would be amazing. Yeah. That would be so great.
And I can do a little sharing at the end. But I just don't want it to be so so separate. Like, because, I am there for their breaking scene and, that community vibe. I really want to capture that, in my residency too. Yeah.
So you need to end it in a battle.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess so.
I'm sure they can arrange that with you. That's so good. Well, thank you so much for your time, Sarah. It's been lovely to talk to you and get to talk with you more. I've been in the studio with you for half an hour, I think it was, when you were 12 Minute Max with Ario.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I came in and I took your.
You took some pictures or something.
Yeah, and I took a little video of you doing your thing when Ario was in.
Oh, you took a little video.
I was there for the beginning.
Cool. That's so cool. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's so great. Yeah, it's lovely. Yeah. It's really lovely to hear about your journey, and more to come. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Claire.
Bye for now. Thank you so much for listening. We would love for you to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts, as this will help other listeners find us and help us to grow our dance audience. We'll be back next month. In the meantime, you can follow us on Facebook at The Dance Centre, Twitter at Dance Centre, and Instagram at The Dance Centre BC. And if you'd like to support our work, please consider making a donation. Just go to our website at thedancecentre.ca, where you'll find extensive information about our upcoming programs and events. The music for the Dance Centre podcast was composed by James B. Maxwell. Always a pleasure to connect with you through dance. Until next time.